on June 10th, 2020.
I'm sorry, Karen, can you please start the recording? Oh, there you go. Great.
I just did. I believe that I did. Does it look like it's
Yes,
recording?
yes, the
I see it
recording's
now.
on.
Yep.
This meeting is being held remotely and will be recorded. I would like to acknowledge the presence of the following board members and confirm that we have a quorum. Peter Jennings is attending. Anthony Soders in attendance.
Here.
And John Yusa is here. Okay. We do have a quorum for the meeting. I would also like to acknowledge the Commissioner, Michelle Siegel, and the balance of her staff also for attending the meeting. And also appreciate all the participants for their attention to this matter today. First item of business for the board in particular is the review and draft of the minutes of February 7th, 2020, our previous board minutes. The board members all received a copy of these minutes in their packages, have had an opportunity to review them, and I would like to entertain a motion to accept them, at least for the purpose of getting a discussion. Is there such a motion?
Motion to accept.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay.
That was
So
Tony
motion
that
by-
motion.
Motion by Soder and second by Jennings. Is there any discussion on the minutes? Hearing none. All in favor of the minutes as presented, indicate by
Aye.
aye.
Aye. Aye.
Okay. So that's all three have, we will all acknowledge the minutes. The minutes are approved. Comments or concerns of any person present today on any item that is not on our agenda? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on. Next item on our agenda is the DCP Investigation Division. Normally, we would be seeing a quarterly complaint status report, but in view of the circumstances that we're all operating under, we will see that report at our August meeting. I've had a discussion with Janita and Pam on that, and I can accept that. That's not a problem. The second item under the investigation division was that the board had requested some additional information on two particular cases. I've been advised by Pam that one case has been reopened and the other case remains open. Therefore, we won't be looking at those at this point either, because it's still an open case, it's ongoing. Any question by the board?
None.
Okay, thank you.
All set.
Okay. Moving on to old business. First item is discussion regarding potential changes to regulations and statutes. I've indicated that I'd like to table this until August 7th meeting in order to have more information prepared for everyone. And it's going to take some time for everybody to review some possible recommended changes. So we'll table that until August 7th. If nobody has a problem. Hearing none.
Good with that there.
Okay, thanks, Tony. Item number 2 under old business is a discussion regarding the application review and credit for licensures from other jurisdictions. As the board knows, an application review working group was established. Since our last meeting, we did meet once at DCP. Todd Birch from DOL apprenticeship, is also in attendance, along with Richard Hurd, Deputy Commissioner, and others. We reviewed some 20 electrical applications. Majority of them were able to be approved, and there were a couple that were denied. Okay. That system seems to be working, although it's the first time doing it. It seemed to work fairly well. So we have not met for obvious reasons since. Okay. Old business item 3. Somebody has their mic on. There's a lot of background noise, so please keep them off if you're not talking.
Yeah, and one note for our callers, both our panelists and our attendees, to mute yourself, just hit *6, and then you can hit *6 to unmute yourself when you need to. And also, if you need to raise your hand, it's *9.
Thank you, Mr. Cohen. Mr. Cohen is that mystery voice in the background. He is from the IT department, helping us all out through this new adventure. Going back to old business under item number 3, review of continuing education provider application for the 2020 cycle. Proposed new provider, Lamothe Electrical Training. Karen was nice enough to scan and send over to me his resubmittal. I took a look at it. Not much had changed since his original submittal. I put a call into Mr. Lamothe, spoke to him about it, and he decided he wanted to withdraw for this year because he was dealing with all the other states he works with and the coronavirus and the impact on him scheduling things. So his application has been withdrawn, and possibly we may see something next year. Item number 4, legislative session 2020, Governor's Bill number 13. I think Leslie's on here. Yes.
I am. I'm here.
Leslie, do you want to comment on that? I mean, not much happened, as we all know, but
Right. I don't anticipate. I mean, I think whatever the governor's office was contemplating, and I know they were talking to stakeholders about their language, but at this point it's dead, obviously, since there is, the session's over. I don't think this is something that they will be looking at if there is a special session. This is not, from what I have heard from everyone in all 4 caucuses in the governor's office, if they do actually end up in special session, they're only going to do the things that are absolutely necessary. And I don't think they consider that proposal to be something that was necessary. So I would anticipate that this won't be something that will be discussed again until next year.
thank you, Leslie. That's pretty much my take on it too. I would agree with that. I think it's nobody saw the virus coming, so it's really turned the apple cart upside down pretty good for everybody. So that being said, anybody have any questions on the legislative report? Hearing none. Okay. New business. Everybody's received in their packet as well a resignation letter from board member Ronald Bish. Unfortunately, Mr. Bish has resigned from the board. Mr. Bish has been a long-term member. He's been on the board as long as I have. He's worked very well with the board. He's been a big contributor to our board. And we accept his resignation with regret. And we certainly wish Mr. Bish goodwill and good health in the future. Any other comments by board members on that?
This is Tony. I just would also like to thank Ron for his dedicated years of service, not only to the board, but also to the electrical industry and looking out for the best interest of the industry as a whole. So I wish him the best in his retirement and nothing but the best.
Thank you, Tony. Any other board member?
Yes, I agree with Tony. Ron's dedicated a lot to the industry and to the board, and we appreciate it.
John Yuza here. I
John?
think we should at least send him a letter stating what Tony and all of us feel is thank him for his years of service.
Okay. I certainly could do that, or is it possible that maybe the department could send him a letter?
Is Richard still with us here? Richard Hilbert? You'd have
Yep.
to ask him as the director.
Yeah, Rich? Yeah,
Yeah, we'll have to come up with a letter then, and maybe all the board members could sign it.
that would be good.
Okay.
That would be great. All right, thank you. I was planning on taking a break for everybody at this point. However, it's only 9:20. It's only 20 minutes into the meeting. Only so we could have continuity in our next discussion, which is the big topic of discussion for the meeting. Pam, are you okay? I'm not Pam. Karen, are you okay to keep moving?
Yes, I see a hand raised though, and I'm not sure if you can see that or not, or do you want me to, it's from one of the phone numbers. Did you want, I'm not sure when you want me to address that.
Yeah, we could address that.
Okay, I'm going to hit allow. Hello? I think the person is trying to speak, but I didn't hear anything. I heard a little bit of some gurgle. Let me go to, can you hear the person, Larry?
Are you looking for this one? 6252?
Yes.
No,
All right,
02.
6252. I'm Joel Kent from Cassia.
Okay. Did you have a comment for the board at this time, or did,
No, I was trying to make sure I was properly logged into the call.
oh, okay, you are.
I heard all the discussion earlier about how do you raise your hand and all that, and I was raising my hand a bunch of times.
Right, and I did see it, but while the chairperson is speaking, I was just waiting till we got to this point to address anybody.
Okay, well,
other than-
I too want to add my best wishes to Mr. Bish on his retirement successfully.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. All right. All right. So if everybody else is good with it, we'll move on to agenda item number 2 under new business. Excuse me. Again, our next agenda item under new business is item number 2, continued education requirements, which are composed of 2 parts as listed. Since each part has an impact on the other parts, I will be discussing this agenda item as one in its entirety, which will make sense as I continue to discuss here. I'm going to make some comments here. As previously noted on the agenda, there was proposed legislation by the governor in Governor's Bill 13 to allow online training for occupational licenses. Because of the coronavirus, the legislative session was closed, and this bill, as well as many others, were never finalized. I'm trying to give you some history of how we got to the proposal that's before us. On April 23rd of this year, I sent correspondence to the governor's office pertaining to Executive Order 7DD, which suspended continuing education for healthcare providers and requested that this action not spill over into the occupational trades. I felt it was important that we can keep our continued education. Everybody I had spoken to or that I've heard from feels that's an important factor, that we don't want to lose continuity of what we've been doing. In communications with the commissioner, the plumbing board chairman and myself were asked to develop a proposal for online classes, which is what we are going to talk about. As a joint effort between myself and the plumbing board chairman, the proposed, and I want to stress this, temporary virtual, live, online, interactive outline was developed. It was reviewed and modified based on comments offered by DCP staff, and then proposed to the commissioner for her consideration to request an executive order from the governor to temporarily allow for virtual live interactive online classes. These classes, if approved, would sunset no later than December 31st of 2020. That is, the executive order would sunset. And again, I can't stress this enough, but I repeat that the proposed virtual live interactive classroom online classes would be only temporary and would sunset no later than December 31st of this year. We felt that just normal standard online webinars and meetings that you see take place was not adequate, that it had to be virtual online. We wanted it to be as real and as close to a classroom setting with the interaction between instructor and students as possible. That's why we set it up the way we did, and which we will go over in a little bit. All board members have received in their board packets a copy of the proposed virtual live interactive online instructions and requirements for currently approved providers. Also included in the board packet was correspondence from the electrical trade union as submitted to the commissioner. At this time, I would like to read the commissioner's email response to Kim Glassman, who's the director of the Foundation for Fair Contracting of Connecticut, who submitted the previously referenced letters from the electrical union to the commissioner. Commissioner's response to Kim Glassman is as follows. Hi, Kim. Thank you for sharing the concerns of some in the industry about making CE classes available online. We agree that precautions would need to be taken to ensure that the person logged into a class is who they claim to be and that they are paying attention, at least to the same degree as when attending an in-person class. We also appreciate that the digital divide is real, and that out of all of our licensees will have the technological ability to attend online classes. That being said, graduate schools, colleges, high schools, junior highs, elementary schools, and CEs for a wide range of other professions have moved online. I'm surprised to hear that there is a belief that plumbers and electricians can't successfully make this transition as well. Given how long we may need to maintain a degree of physical separation, I'm not inclined to accept that these two groups of trade people will be unable to adjust. It may be that we need to consider both extending the CE deadline and allowing online classes. That would allow those with technological skills to take virtual classes, thereby allowing for smaller class sizes for those who would still need to attend in person. I appreciate your openness to finding an agreeable solution. I suggest that we let the relevant boards discuss the issue and make a recommendation to DCP. This is the type of policy input that the boards are designed to provide. We are scheduling virtual board meetings for the plumbers and electricians for next month. And I will ask Herbert to include this on their agenda. To facilitate the discussion, attached our proposed requirements we were developing with the board chairs for online classes, which may address some of the concerns raised in the letters you forwarded. I was not going to get into each of the individual letters that the board members all received. And also, when the providers were notified of this meeting, those are part of the packet. So they've also received them. So everybody, there's no sense of rereading them at this point. As indicated, the commissioner has requested input from each of the respective boards. While we are only going to be addressing the issues as it relates to the electrical trade today, the plumbing board, I understand, will be holding a virtual meeting later this month in which they will discuss the same item for their trade. All currently approved providers for electrical continuing education were notified of today's meeting and were forwarded copies of the letters that were received by the commissioner from the electrical trade union. In addition, each provider also received with their notification a request to respond to 3 questions relative to this topic. Many have submitted a response, of which I would like to thank them all for. We've gotten about 80% of the providers offered responses, not necessarily answering all 3 questions, but at least some in part. And I would like to thank those providers for their input. I've taken and read every one of those. I've taken the liberty to summarize those for the meeting so that we're not repeating ourselves over and over again and asking the same questions. And I'm going to address those 3 questions right now in the response. Excuse me. Get dry after a while talking. First question we asked, are you in favor of temporary online continuing education for the 2020 cycle with the following provision? A, online classes would end no later than December 31st, 2020. Regular in-person classes would resume as soon as permitted by Governor Lamont. Licensees would have until December 31st, 2020 to complete the class without penalty. And D, the license renewal date would remain as is. The response to that was 72% said yes, we're in agreement. 28% had different opinions. Okay. Question number 2 that was submitted. What questions do you have for the board regarding online classes? Interestingly enough, it boiled down to about 2 questions. There's much more in the next question that I'll address. But questions that they had at this point, will there be any testing? And my response is no, there's none is planned at this time. We're utilizing the same curriculum that we have for the in-person class, and there's no testing for that. Second one was, if the 2020 courses are canceled, will we have to refund money? My response is this, that there are no plans at this time to cancel the 2020 courses. I see no reason for refunds, but that would be up to the individual providers' policies if they so felt they needed to do that. That's something that would not be within this board's jurisdiction. The last question, which we've got about 8, 9 comments or questions to. The question was, do you have specific concerns or comments you would like to share? Okay, first one's a comment. It says, we have used various online platforms for other training programs and they have been successful. I think it is important that the electricians continue to complete their educational requirements. That was a comment from one provider. Next question or comment was, some of the rules outlined are very burdensome, particularly recording each class for future reference. Other areas as well will make this a 4.5 plus hour class. Okay. My response to that is that most platforms provide a simple icon for you to push that will record the class. The class should not need to exceed the 4-hour requirement. Item number 13 in the instructions for the providers is not considered to be part of the class time, but is not any different than checking students in before the live class begins, as is currently done with the in-person classroom environment. Next question, comment. Will online classes be discontinued after Governor Lamont approves crowd gathering? Response, online classes will terminate on December 31st, 2020, as will in-person classes. In-person classes and online classes may be run concurrently with each other, subject to gathering rules as issued by the governor. Next question. We strongly recommend that continued education be taught by subject matter experts in a classroom environment. Response, agreed. As with in-person classroom training, in-person classroom training, online training does not change the requirement for subject matter experts to teach the class. Next comment or question. The virtual delivery method suggested by the Electrical Work Board for the 2020 program is fraught with problems as we see it. Registration, logging in, connectivity issues, tracking, engagement, attention span, background distractions, and inadequate computer software, to name a few. My comment to that is as follows. The virtual online rules have been reviewed many times and have taken into consideration the items mentioned. I would agree that there stands a chance that certain providers and or students may have some technical difficulties, such as connectivity issues. Other issues mentioned are all controllable by providers. Virtual online in-person training may not be for everyone, which is okay. That is why in-classroom training has also been extended until December 31st, 2020, without any penalty or license renewal. Next question, comment. Regarding Rule 5G in the instructions. If students must be allowed to print all course reference materials, is sending them our CEU approved booklet in PDF satisfactory? My response would be yes. Next comment or question. While we understand there will be challenges, as this is a new format, we are willing to work through those challenges and will support the decisions that the Electrical Work Board makes. We feel that despite any issues that may arise, it is better to educate than not. My comment is, I also agree with that it is better to educate rather than not. Next question or comment provided was, during the global pandemic, it would be of great benefit to the tradespeople of Connecticut if a waiver would be issued to the current regulation and temporarily allow distance continuing education. This waiver will enable our tradespeople to go online to obtain their continuing education and stay up to date on code while staying safe and learning remotely. My response to that is, I agree, but only if it's a virtual, live, interactive classroom style of training. That makes it as close to what we have been, and everybody has been used to for the last number of years. And last but not least, we have received an influx of requests from license holders to provide continuing education online. They want to comply with, not remove, continuing education requirements. And again, my comment to that is I also agree with that. That pretty much brings everybody up to date as to where we are with this proposal, what response we've gotten back from the industry, and so forth. I summarized these things so that we wouldn't have to repeat the questions over and over again, just in a different manner. So at this point, I would like to allow anybody from the public that's out there, and we'll have to address you one at a time, allow you to speak on if you have a question or a comment that hasn't possibly been covered.
You can just go ahead and raise your hand, and Karen will enable you to speak and let you know.
I guess we could take, that's Mr. Verno.
Yeah, could you give me give us a time frame when we start this?
Can you repeat that, please?
Can you give me a time frame when we could start this?
Okay. I believe the department is going to wait for the plumbing board to have their meeting. And then with the commissioner's agreement and approval, I would suspect she would submit something to the governor's office. But I see the commissioner's here online, and she can probably add to that.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you. I was going to give some remarks maybe at the end of the conversation, but I thought maybe it'd be helpful now to sort of give some context for the conversation we're having now. And I think Chairman Valerie's did a good job teeing up the issue with COVID. We were concerned, how do we handle continuing education in light of all the physical distancing rules? Certainly one thing we want to explore, and that a number of professional organizations have been doing, is online CE. We began to hear back from the industry that there's some concern about whether that's really a viable option. And so we really thought the best way to do this is create an open forum, which is the exact purpose of these board meetings, to allow for that. So that's what's happening now. In terms of process, I want to hear how the conversation goes. Our hope would be at the end, the board will make a recommendation, but I do just want to clarify what the exact rules will be and the timing will be. Is going to vary depending on what the recommendation is. Ultimately, this would have to be an executive order, and the executive order will need to be signed by the governor. So whether, in part they will have to agree with the recommendation, which may depend on the nature of it. So things that are on the farther end of just canceling altogether, there may end up being a view that needs to happen legislatively and not by executive order. Things that are less long-term may become more acceptable, but it's hard at this stage to predict exactly. But we think phase one is have the public discussion, get a recommendation for the board, and then take it from there. But that's why in a lot of these instances, the board is not going to have an answer as to what happens next, because it's not entirely within their control or even the department's control. With that, thank you everybody for being here. I really am kind of looking forward to just hearing the conversation and the different opinions and see what recommendation may come out of this. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Excuse me, was that Mark Verno? Is that who was speaking to that question?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, the only thing is we want to kind of prepare for this because we have followed all the rules that are needed from the governor. And he's now talking this morning about opening up the state the 17th for totals. I guess 95% problem. You think it will be at that time?
I guess, I guess my only response to that is it's unfortunately, this is a moving target as to when the state will really open. And I know he's indicated various things, which I certainly hope come to be the case. But it's hard to make a determination as to exactly when things will happen. Again, you know, it's conceivable that he may open things up enough that people can have an in-person classroom with the social distancing that is needed, and with certain other requirements as far as sanitation and what have you. But we don't know that, and it would end up undoubtedly being on a per provider situation, because some providers have their own facilities, some providers rent facilities, some providers use hotels in places like that, and they may not be receptive to doing something at the venue. So as much as I'd like to be able to give you a positive answer, I can't.
All right. The only thing we are, of course, self-certified from the state. And, you know, I'm just hoping that my counterparts will not take any shortcuts. And everybody is in this. Everybody wants everybody to be feel right and do the right thing. So whatever the board decides to do, I'll go along with it. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Paul Costello.
One note, before moving on to the next speaker, Karen, you can disable the previous speaker and lower their hand. That way you know they're all set.
Paul Costello should be able to speak.
Thank you. Good morning,
Good morning.
and thank you for the opportunity to have this meeting this morning. I appreciate it. I think it'll be very helpful for the industry. Couple of quick questions. Any idea on, of the almost 14,000 license holders, how many completed CEUs already? Has that been taken into account?
I believe it's approximately 20%.
Okay. And again, I think everybody kind of knows my position through the letter that was submitted, but, you know, looking at some of the rules, definitely have some concerns with it. We've been doing online training with our apprenticeship now since March ourselves, unfortunately. And it's getting us through. It's by no means a substitute. And I just kind of think it's going to be a little bit more of a task even for continuing ed. You know, I'm just looking at today's meeting. If this is going to be the format, and one of the things that we're saying it's got to be virtual live, we have quite a few people that are just using phones today. How are we going to be able to manage that? You know, that was one of the requirements. Would this be the format that we're going to follow?
I'm looking for the article so I could reference it. Item number 11, approved providers must advertise that participants are not permitted to use cell phones for this virtual live interactive program because of the limited screen size. Only desktop, laptop, and computer notebooks or tablets are permitted.
You know, and another one was we've had classes where unfortunately we don't see the individual sometimes. And we go to sign off for the class and we may have 10% of them that haven't signed off after we tell them the class is over because at some point they just walked away from the computer. I know there's going to be the polling in there. How are we going to address those that don't respond in a timely manner? How long do we allow for that? In a classroom environment, it's easy. If they're outside grabbing a smoke or during break time, we could just rally them all back into the training centers. How do we handle that in this type of format? And what repercussions do we deny them a certificate if they don't?
I would say, and as you indicated, Paul, we've included in there polling of at least once per hour. Just like in-person classes, you kind of get a feel for that the person's been gone quite a while. And there you can actually stop your class, I understand, or say to somebody, anybody know where Paul went?
Yeah.
But it's really in control of the provider at that point as to how long they're going to allow somebody to be out of the class. I mean, somebody may need to use the restroom facility, and some may take it and go make a smoke break out of it. Some may take it and just make it an extended smoke break, if you will. There's so many different variables there. I think that's strictly up to the provider in determining. If the provider sees that that Paul has, I'm using you as an example, Paul, of course.
I'm good. That's fine.
That Paul has been gone for 20 minutes, a half hour. You've got the right to say, hey, you're not attending the, what was the problem, okay? And maybe it was a legitimate problem, okay? Because we realize everybody has lives. Maybe they got a text or something that came in, and there was some sort of a family emergency or what have you. But assuming that that's not the case, the provider has the option of saying, just like they do right now, look, you've been out of class for 45 minutes. I can't give you full credit for this class. You're gonna have to repeat the class. That's up to the provider. The provider is certifying that the person did take the class in its entirety and within reason.
Also, the printed material. I know most providers by now probably invested quite a bit in their handout material. Unfortunately, that won't be able to be used again for future classes because the chapters that are being referenced this code cycle, or this CEU cycle, I should say.
Yep. Was there a question there? Actually, are you concerned about the providers that have excess printed material?
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, I can't really give you a good answer on that one. I'll be honest with you, because I can understand people doing that early in the year to get advantage of pricing from their printers and what have you. But by the same token, nobody had any indication that we were going to be in this coronavirus issue that we're in. And I guess it becomes just one of the casualties, so to speak. I hate to say it that way, but.
Yeah, that's, my proposal was basically just, and I totally agree. I fully support, keeping up with the classes. Seems like the direction we're headed, the state is going in a better direction as far as reopening. Just extending the completion requirement and just continue with in-person classes, whether it be on a limited social distancing requirements, but just extend it out further.
Well, I think we've looked at that, and we've come up with December 31st as a date. It's not unrealistic for us to relook at that if we see that that's a problem. It's easy enough for the department to pull a report on how many people have taken continued education by that time, or just even at the beginning of December. And I would not be opposed to extending that if it was necessary. I don't want to unnecessarily extend it just so people have more time to be lax about getting their continued education done. Pretty soon, the board will be looking at the curriculum for next year and getting that prepared and out. And if it wasn't for the disruption with the coronavirus, we probably would have already looked at that and gotten it out to the providers so they could get started on it right away. So I want to be careful about the crossover between the two and any confusion that gets developed as a result of that. So we're also looking at what's coming down the pike for next year's continued ed. Anything else, Paul?
Yeah, no, I just, again, I got a concern, we're probably looking at theoretically about 10 to 11,000 people still need to do the requirement. And if we're looking, and I agree, I think even 25, honestly, I think to manage an online class is pretty significant. We're probably looking at 400 plus classes that are going to need to be offered.
Bear in mind, okay, you're correct if we were doing 100% online. The in-person classes are still going to be available once the governor readdresses the gathering requirements. And as indicated earlier here today, it sounds like that might be coming sooner. I mean, if a provider had I'm just going to pick an example. If a provider had a facility that had a ballroom, okay, that they owned, and they wanted to put a class on and maintain the 6-foot distancing amongst everybody and come up with a proposal and what have you, then it's something that somebody would have to review and approve, but they could still be doing in-person classes, so to speak, as we speak, if they maintain the requirements. I understand that there is a school in the higher education system that has proposed and has been approved by the Department of Higher Education, which we are not part of, that they approved a plan to do classes, not necessarily continued education classes, but classes, okay? So again, to go back to your initial comment about, say 10,000 people at 25 people at a pop, that's only if we're doing it 100% online. I don't see that to be the case before the end of the year. I suspect it will be a combination. The other thing is, there are some people out there, and I had a call directly from a license holder in Massachusetts asking me about the feasibility of continued education online, and I told him it was something we were working on and just stay in touch with his provider, and that would be the best way, or the DCP website as things break on this. And his concern was that, he was an older license holder. His wife was ill. Her immune system was compromised. He really enjoys the in-person classrooms. However, under the circumstances that he has in his life, he would like to be able to do an online class, even though he felt in-person is much more superior and more comfortable for him, which I agree with. So there are going to be people that aren't going to all of a sudden, just because the gathering rules change, and or you have no real gathering rules, are not going to be willing to jump into into a group real quick. Some are going to be reluctant depending on their own personal situations. Certainly we see that happening now. At least I hear it from a lot of people calling me about it. So,
Thank you, Larry.
okay, Paul, thank you. Thank you for your input. Karen, your mic.
We have a Q&A here from Amy Bonilla, and I'm not sure, I would assume she's one of the providers, but I'm not sure which, where she's saying Zoom, I think this pertains to your discussion a few minutes ago. Zoom is a platform that works for instructor-led training. This meeting does not represent what a virtual class would look like. I'm not sure the best way to go about answering it.
Okay, let me see. Okay, I'm reading it right now.
Can you, oh, you can see it, okay.
Yeah, I just brought up. Zoom is a platform that works for instructor-led training. This meeting does not represent what a virtual class would be. Well, excuse me, would be like. Well, Zoom. Okay, I understand. I know I understand what is being said here. This meeting does not represent what a virtual class would be like. And then she goes on, she says, this was just in response to what someone was saying about on the phone. And then I got somebody saying, can you guys see my hand? Not sure if I'm doing it correctly. Yes.
I can see hands, but I'm just gonna have everybody come in. There's about 8 people waiting to speak, so I can see your hand.
Yep. So, yeah, the Q&A, I get the point. And again, thank you for your reference that this is a Zoom meeting. There are many platforms out there that work well. So, in Zoom can work well too, depending on how familiar you are with it. Let's go on to the next person that got their hand up.
Okay, just, and I'm gonna enable her to speak, but if people could just, when they speak, make sure they say their name and the provider that they represent, so I know who they are, that'd be very helpful.
Pat Reams.
Well, I know that, but some of the people here, I don't know who
Right.
they are when they start talking.
Yeah.
Pat, are you able to speak now? Okay, Pat, can you speak now?
Hello,
Hello.
Yep, there you go.
I'm here. Okay, thank you very much for your time. My name is Pat Reams, and I'm Executive Director of Connecticut Alarm and System Integrators, which represents the low voltage industry. And again, I made a point in our submission that we find the technical difficulties in adapting our 2020 program, which was slides and conversation, et cetera, to a new program without having very, technical ability, and we don't at this point. And also keeping track of, say, 25 people in a class, as well as conducting the class and registering them, et cetera, et cetera. I'm looking at this Zoom meeting now, and it's taken an IT person to sort of coordinate this, and there's only 5 people on the board actually speaking. I would like somebody to do or recommend a platform that they think will work for this kind of program. And the person who just commented and said that this is not a typical of an online training Zoom meeting. I've been on webinars, but they're not interactive. I find that the interactive part is going to be a difficulty from my point of view. We also made the suggestion of perhaps if you waive continuing ed for this year and perhaps extend next year's program to be 6 hours, if that's, would solve a little bit of a problem, more learning, but next year. And we'd like the board to consider waiving the program for this year and perhaps enlarging it or expanding it for next year if they think that would work. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Pat. So the once everybody has had the opportunity here from the public to discuss things, the board is going to be also making comments, and we can address that issue of possibly waiving the continued ed. I know I can tell you that I am not in favor of that, but it needs to be. We can discuss that further. And yes, this program that we're running today, this meeting we're running today, is we're kind of the beta site for working with the department. We looked at a couple other programs too. The department has and our IT people, and we felt that this was best for what we're doing right now. So if we do have some bumps in the road today as we're going through this, just please be patient with us. Anything new is going to have bumps in the road, I think. So John, I noticed you popped up there for a minute. I was going to hold board comments till the end, if that's okay.
Fine, no problem.
Okay.
I don't know if you want to address, and again, I'm not sure what you can see, the Q&A and in the chat. I don't know if you want to address those two people waiting, or those comments waiting, or if you want to go right to the next person, which is Mark Candles. So
Yeah, I think I'd rather go through first off the people that are on the phone right now.
Okay.
And in talking with them, that might answer some of the Q&As or chat.
Okay.
But
I just want to let you know that those are out there. Okay, so
yeah, and I can see them. I
Okay.
didn't check the Q&A just yet, but
Okay.
I guess Mark Candles would be next.
Yep.
And if
Okay, Mark, can you speak? You should be able to talk.
Good morning.
Okay. Good morning.
My name is Mark Candles. We have an electrical estimating and training online program that we teach down here in Fort Myers, Florida. Most of you know me, and I want to thank the board members, the commissioner and Director Hurlbut for holding this meeting. And I'd also just like to quickly mention Ron Bish will be greatly missed in the industry. I've known him for many years, so he's, I'm sorry about my phone there. Should be going away in any second here, sorry about that. Okay, so getting back to Paul Costello's comment, Paul is a very well-respected person in the industry, and he's absolutely right. It's going to be hard to police this program, and I know this is a last-minute thing, so you know there's a lot of work involved in it. But Paul's right about trying to police this and maintain people actually completing the program. Historically, online programs, there's only a 5% pass rate out there because we've done a lot of data collection for our online classes versus in-person classes. And the industry average is only about 5% pass rate. Now, our program, our estimating program, has an 85% pass rate, and I'll tell you the reasons why and how we overcome this. We do use Zoom. Zoom's a great platform. But in conjunction with Zoom, you need a couple other products. So we have a product called Lifter, which is part of, it's a learning management system. So now the students have to go in, they have to log into Lifter, and they have to participate. They have to answer questions. You have your Zoom chat open right now. You have your Zoom Q&A open, but now you need a moderator to watch this at the same time, kind of like what Karen's doing right now. So online classes are going to be a lot more work for a last minute deal to put together to do them properly. And what my proposal is to the board, Down the road, I'm more than happy to show you how we've done it to make sure that everybody participates. Through a lifter learning management system, they have to answer questions. They have to be there. You can monitor if they've walked away from the computer or not. Like I said, we have an 85% pass rate. If you're not sitting there, you're done, you're gone. You have to take the quizzes, and we moderate these people every 15, 20 minutes, ask them questions. We make them ask questions in chat. We make them interactive. All right, we're gonna have a question about this article that we're talking about, this code article. You have to participate. We go right down the table. 25 people is a lot of people. I do agree with that, but it's not impossible. But my offer is, if the board would like to see a private demonstration of how we've done it to make everybody accountable, maybe long-term down the road, next year, the year after, if the state decided, hey, let's look into this, we'd be more than happy to show the program. But again, getting back to Paul Costello's comments, he's right. How do you police this? And it's going to have to be on the honor system, because we can't. I don't think it's a good idea to cancel continuing ed this year. We've got the three or the two articles that we're going through. We're just going to fall behind, next year by trying to catch up with the rest of the code before the next code cycle or the next code book comes out. So I'm in favor to hold the online classes. I just everybody knows that there's going to be some cracks. People are going to fall through the cracks. So, and as far as the handouts, we would mail them out. We'd have to mail them out. You'd have to, mail them out by mail. And that's all I have to say. And thank you all.
Okay, thank you, Mark, and thank you for that offer. And I am familiar with the supplemental program that you referenced, or not particularly that program, but an LMS program. And we were trying to do, because this is a very short-term interim situation, is to try to keep it what we think is as simple as possible. Again, this is going to be for only a few months at this point. So, but I've so noted, and we may at some point take you up on a demonstration of your program, or that you use. Thank you, Mark. Karen, next. You're on. You're muted.
Sorry about that. Don't want to create more background noise. Let me just get Victor Mitchell to on. Can you hear us, Victor?
Yes, I can. You hear me?
Oh, okay. All right, you're all set.
Just a couple of questions or thoughts. I did not read it in the plan here, but I've heard it, and I think Paul made reference to it. We're talking students or electricians being live on camera during the entire 4 hours, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so none of the, like when people call in, their name appears and you don't know if they're there or out plowing the back 40. Okay, we have done, at the college here, I work for Tunxus, we have done, ramped up like a rocket ship to put many of our programs online for continuing ed. And it's an extremely wonderful, painful adventure that you'd rather poke your eyes out with a fork by the time you're done. But it can be done, but there has to be some specifics. Now, another comment about this too, if the coronavirus reappears in the fall and everybody's kind of wondering, will this all be reviewed again to possibly modify the program another time?
Victor, to answer your question, would we revisit it if the coronavirus reappears in the fall? I would say more than likely we would, because again, it would be possibly a different set of circumstances that we would all be being exposed to. So this is kind of a live, constantly developing issue that we have to monitor relative to the coronavirus and how it impacts us.
Just one other final comment. As the colleges, and I'm not so sure about public ed, but the colleges have to get approval from the Department of Public Health to run any of our programs. There has to be a whole policy procedure worked out through this, which we're doing now. Is that a requirement for this?
Online? Virtual online?
On ground, any of the on-ground programs. If we're going to do anything on ground, we have to have a whole procedure policy set up.
Yeah, I would say that yes. If you, this is my opinion. It's strictly my opinion. But if somebody wanted to try to do it on, I mean, a in-person class right now, it would have to get approved through somewhere, and I would think that would be public health relative to how you're handling the people, the attendees, and what provisions you're taking for health and safety reasons.
That's it. Just let us know when we start.
Okay, thanks, Victor. Next, Karen. Karen, the next one, please.
Give me 1 second, please.
Okay, I'm sorry.
That's
I know
okay.
you're making notes too. Sorry.
George, it should be George Ballard. Can you speak, George?
Yes.
Okay.
George Ballard, Ballard Electric Safety and Training. Again, thank you so much for having this meeting. As some of you know, I teach for the state of Connecticut Department of Education. I teach at a technical high school, and I've been doing online classes every day since March, and it is a challenge. The state is using, for us, we're using Google Meet, which is really interactive, but have no idea what the state paid for it, so I can't answer those questions. But the kids, you can mute them, unmute them, ask them to turn their mics on, turn the cameras on. Some of the kids, you know, have no problems with that. One of the things that I found, though, Larry, is we've had a lot of issues with connectivity, especially if there's a lot of people in the house using the internet. Sometimes they crash. You know, it's been a little bit of a logistic nightmare keeping the kids online. They like being connected with us. They like to be able to see us. So doing the best we can with having these classes online so the kids can see you is huge. Having it interactive is huge. I make all my classes interactive. It works pretty well. You call on them, you ask them questions. We talk about sections of the code book. Is it a lot of work? Yes. It's a lot more work than if you were in front of people. But hopefully we can reopen the state as time goes on, and we can have the in-person classes. But I think education right now and continuing education is huge to keep the guys engaged. I've had many people contact me I got guys from California all the way to Florida, back up to Maine, that come to my classes in person, and they're asking, what should we do? And because part of the problem is the traveling. And, you know, for some of these people, online is going to be the best thing that could happen for them this year until this, you know, pandemic subsides. But as far as, you know, finding out, and you spoke about it before, Larry, you know, you don't know if a guy or a person, whoever, if he's gone for 10 minutes, you don't know if he's got connective problems. You don't know if he's got a family emergency. What I've been doing in my classes is the students have been able to contact me and send me a text to my cell phone to tell me that, hey, my Wi-Fi crashed, you know, something happened, and just keep me posted on what their status is. It's worked very well for me. I don't know if this would work for anybody else, but, you know, teaching teenage kids, you know, sometimes is like herding cats, if you can understand. You know, you gotta keep them engaged and keep them busy. But they do have the honor system as far as, hey, my system went down, I'll be back on as soon as I can. So whatever the board decides, yes, we have challenges ahead of us. And yes, some guys do not have Wi-Fi connectivity or they lose it. But, you know, we've got to try to keep going with this as far as I can see. And again, I'm the first one to say I'd love to stand in front of everybody and teach my classes, but unless the state opens up, this is the next best thing we could do.
Okay, thank you, George. And George, one thing that you mentioned that relative to connectivity, that is something that none of us can really control very much or at all. But most of the programs that I've looked at, if somebody does lose their connection, it's indicated in the host can see that. And again, that's provided the host is monitoring that as well, and in general, monitoring everything that they should monitor, which is not all that hard because they're just scanning the screen. By the same token, you made reference to the fact that sometimes when they do lose connectivity, in your case, the student will text you and say, I got disconnected or whatever, and I'm coming back online. And I appreciate you offering that out. And that's something that we did put into this proposal under number 13, basically, that the instructor be available 30 minutes beforehand to help anybody with any problems getting online. And to do that, they would do that through possibly a texting or what have you. And that would hold true throughout the class. So I'm glad to see that you've already, so to speak, tested that piece out. And I appreciate everything you do, George, because your input's also important. Because I know as a VOTEC school instructor, you've been doing this, and you've got some more experience there with it. Thank you.
Thanks, Larry.
Okay. You looking for the next person?
Yeah, did we lose somebody?
No, just, there was Tim, I don't know how to pronounce his last name, one of the providers.
Oh, he's down the bottom now for some reason.
Okay, I think, let me just try and get him on.
Yep.
He had been next.
Tim McClochie.
Right, okay. Oh, there he is. Okay, so. Okay, Tim, you should be able to talk.
Okay, Karen, can you hear me?
Yes, yep.
I think my name's Tim McClochie. I'm the founder of Electrical Training Services, and I think my hand was up so long, like when you're in school, it just went automatically down. So I apologize for that. I had to raise it up again. But I want to thank the board for having this meeting also. And I agree with, I've talked with Larry and a few others. I agree that we have to look at an alternative method, and we need to do something, because, you know, as far as I'm concerned, being an inspector during the day, skipping education is really not an option. We were already behind on the training. So I agree we need to do something. However, we are in a different position today than we were even in May or March. And I am happy that there would be an option for open classes because of the opportunity that the state's going to open up 95%. And you know, I'm into technology. We started a remote video inspection program, and have done over 800 video inspections in 2 months. So I know that's what we need to do. Ironically, on the inspections, and so far 30 to 40 of the people who I say that the state's going to determine if we're going to do online would prefer to wait for an in-person class. In inspections, they would prefer to wait for an in-person inspection. And again, that might be not likely, and in some cases, it's not going to be for a while. And there are people that are more interested in going online, and for several different reasons, it's more convenient for a lot of people. However, I think the average attendant in our classes, and maybe licensed in the state, is in the 40 to 50-year-old range. And the technology for them, whereas if it is available, they're not trained on it. I mean, I'm a smaller provider that does 1 or 2 person companies. They're kind of the ones that still have the flip phone, not even the latest ones, the Don Johnson model. They're not really into technology. So I would like just the opportunity to be able to still do limited in-person classes, and for the ones who want to take the online classes, yeah, that's great. We have to do that. Let's offer it. One of the notes that I haven't heard from anybody yet, and one of the things that I did as a follow-up, I'm one of the providers. I'm an International Association of Electrical Inspector member, IAI, and I use IAI materials. I did forward an email over to Karen, and I think I sent it to Larry, but I'm not sure if I had the email addresses here while I was doing this. The permissions to use the material are typically for in-person only, and I did not know this. I just got this email a couple days ago. Using their material for broadcast and for recording that we would have to keep on record, even in the time of Corona, they're not really too into supporting. So I know it's a provider issue, and I know, the provider burden, it's an us problem. I get it. I've been a provider since the beginning. I'm into training. Larry knows that. So in a short period of time, for the 2 to 3 month period that we're looking at, I got to be honest with you, I probably won't develop slides and create my own program so that I won't have copyright issues. And I think that's one of the things that's important for providers. If you're not creating your own material, if you are, sure, you're ahead of the curve, and it is what it is. If you're not, you really need to think about what you're using for copyrights or what you're using for material to make sure you have that material and it's not copyrighted and you can't use it, because that's going to get us in a whole bunch of trouble that we're really not, we're not looking for. We just want to provide an education, be it through online, that's fine, 4 hours to me, same thing, long time, or in person. But I think again, the governor opened up everything 95%. If we can keep the limited on-site classes a potential, I have people that want to wait. I have people signing up for September classes, even though I tell them we're not probably going to do classes in person. So I support whatever the board would do. I think online is something that we do need to definitely look at and take advantage of. But there are some other concerns. So thanks again for the time.
Okay, thank you, Tim. You raised a question about copyright material, which is a legitimate question. Since this is still while this is online, it's still a interactive person-to-person presentation. So I don't believe there's a problem with the copyright, but I can appreciate your concern or your comment too. Thank you. Okay, next, I guess, Karen.
Okay, we have Naomi next. If she could state her name and the provider that she's with.
Hi, yeah, my name is Naomi Yensich, and I'm with Jade Learning. And Amy Bonilla, who wrote in the Q&A earlier, also is with Jade Learning.
Oh,
We're a
thank you.
relatively new provider for Connecticut. So thank you so much for the chance to speak. I just wanted to mention a couple just really common sense things. The majority of our continuing education is already online. So we do have a lot of experience in that area. And I just wanted to mention that we highly encourage our attendees to use a webcam. I know per the Connecticut rules, they can do a webcam or a photograph, but we highly encourage our attendees to use their webcam if at all possible, which makes it a lot easier for the instructor to feel like it is an in-classroom course, because they can look out, ask a question, and see people physically answering by raising their hands, or any other body language you would use in the class, you can use online as well if you have that webcam available. Also, if an attendee doesn't have a webcam and you know, all you can see is this name like you're seeing of me right now, you can bet our instructors are going to be asking those people even more questions than the people they can see to make sure that they're interacting and that they are behind the face of the photograph and paying attention, in addition to the polls and in addition to the chat box and everything else. And much like the provider earlier down in Florida mentioned, or I'm not sure, it might have been someone else, just about texting them if they have to leave or have an emergency. You know, that's why the chat feature is so great. There is that communication piece. If anyone needs to step away, just to keep everyone in the loop, so they don't have to worry about sacrificing the hours that they're earning. And the last thing I just wanted to mention is that, you know, and some other people have mentioned before, is that, yeah, it is it's a new thing. It's a new thing to learn. An instructor that's really, really competent in the classroom may struggle the first couple times delivering a robust program online, just because it's a new learning platform, and there are things to learn, like how to monitor the chat and things to think of that maybe they didn't think of before. But it's something that can be learned, and it's something that our instructors have gone through training on, and after 1 or 2 sessions feel very confident in, and it feels, you know, maybe just a tiny bit more work still than a classroom course in a different way, but it's very comfortable, and it's not something that they don't enjoy. They can still see that the licensees are learning, and they still get that connection. And I just want to, I really applaud the board's willingness to review this type of learning, because it's been an incredible feature for a lot of licensees that we've worked on in the past in other states. And I think would be a really helpful tool to use during this pandemic for Connecticut. So thank you so much. And that's all I had to say.
Thank you, Naomi. Appreciate your input. And the board can consider all the points you brought up. Karen, next.
Okay. We have Marcy Addy from the Construction Education Center.
We have, before Marcy speaks, we have, after Marcy, we have 3 more with their hands up. And after those 3, I'll look at the question and answers and chats for everybody. So thank you. Go ahead, Marcy.
Morning, Mr. Chairman, and I'd like to thank you and the board members and Commissioner Siegel for having this meeting today, and to listening to all of the providers and our concerns and our thoughts on this. It is in the opinion of the Construction Education Center that virtual, online, interactive, continuing education during this pandemic will be of benefit to the license holders. There are still changes to code that are in place, and electricians are essential workers who are out there every day. And it has been determined by the state that continuing education is something necessary for tradespeople, and you know, we fully agree with that. We have gone online to finish up our apprenticeship year virtually. Again, echoing other sentiments. Is it perfect? Absolutely not. It's not a perfect system. There's no really replacing an in-person instructor and his class, but we've found that the virtual system utilizing Zoom has been really wonderful, and it's allowed people to finish up their year, which is perfect during this time. Now, this is a different system. The format of this meeting is a different format than we've used for our Zoom meetings. Everybody's camera is on. So when this meeting was set up, it was probably set up that everybody's camera, the participants' cameras would be off. There is training to do. Your instructors do need to be trained on how to use a system, but I'm sorry, Naomi, I believe her name was, from Jade, said you do a training session with them, and after a couple of times they're comfortable. It's just like with any instructor you have, even in person. don't just throw them in and have them teach a class. You teach them how to instruct. So we really do believe that this is a tool that can be utilized during this time, because we don't know in the fall, are we going to have a resurgence? Can we have in-person classes? And we do have people coming to us saying, we want to go online. We want our class online. We had people before the pandemic saying, why can't we do classes online when other industries do it online? So we think that this would be a good start. And to echo Mr. Ballard, it's going to be a lot of work, but continuing education, it is huge. And so we respectfully request that we can do this, and we appreciate the board's consideration.
Thank you, Marcy. I appreciate the comments. Next, Karen.
We have Richard Byrd. Let me, all right. All right, Richard Byrd, are you there?
Yes, I am. Thank you very much.
And are you from a provider, with a certain provider?
Yep, my name is Richard Byrd. I'm from IEC New England. I just would like to thank the board for taking the opportunity to hold this meeting, to look at an alternative way to supplement the online classes, or the classroom portion of it, with the virtual live classroom portion of continuing education. I do believe it's very important that we do stay on, our current pace with the continuing education. It is an important topic as an instructor and as an electrical contractor to stay on top of this. I know Tim mentioned it earlier in regards to inspections and falling behind. So I think it's a great idea. We also had to continue our apprenticeship program online. Ours was live, interactive, and it has gone good so far. I agree with George Ballard about there were challenges that were faced during this, but we were able to overcome those to move forward to be able to continue with that. That's pretty much what I would like to add to this. And again, thank you to the board for at least allowing us to be able to look at a format that we can continue to teach the 2020 continuing education program with.
Thank you, Richard. I appreciate the comments, and we'll move on to the next.
We have Mark Verino, which I think he spoke before. Can you? You should be able to speak now.
Yeah. His mic's off.
Okay, on his side.
Mark, are you there? Your mic is off right now, I believe.
All right.
There you go.
Just want to give you a comment. Somebody talked about getting prepared. He actually can go to the state higher education and do what they call self-certification. If he does that, then he'll be able to get a certificate saying that he can do the teaching in-house, depending on the rules from the board. Just a comment, so if anybody's looking to do that, he has to do a self-certification. We've done that, plus we've now put on a person that's just doing work on the certification, on the building, on the classrooms, on the separation, so forth, so on. So, you know, that would be the first step if you're going to do any teaching in place. Thank you.
Thank you for that information, Mark. Thanks for sharing that with everyone.
Okay, and then we have Ally. Can you hear us, Ally?
I can.
Okay. We can hear you. What was your last name again?
My name is Allie French, and I'm with IEC New England.
Okay, thank you.
I want to first thank Chairman and the board for allowing this meeting and for having our input on your decision. A lot of my comments that I had already written down were mentioned by Addie. Marcy, we've been pretty much in line with what she had mentioned. One thing that wasn't touched upon, a lot of people mentioned connectivity issues. I do just want to throw out there that all the public schools are now ending. So from here moving forward, that is really going to be removed from the situation. And just the fact that there are still going to be in-person classes allowed with the social distancing in place, they will have the option to choose whichever method that they like or prefer. We've gotten a number of phone calls of people requesting in the past couple of years online education. So I do think that would be in favor of a lot of attendees. And really this platform is no different than being in a classroom with the exception that you're just behind a screen. So do I necessarily think it's the most ideal situation? No, but there are definitely platforms that allow for effective training methods. And that's about all I have.
Okay, great. Thank you, Allie, for your input. And I believe when you're referencing the connectivity issue, you're just saying that the amount of traffic out there should subside a little bit with the school endings, a number of people on it. Okay. Okay. I don't see anybody else's hand raised. Do you, Karen? Okay. I'm going to go to the Q&As that have come in. And let me try to read them to you, everybody. This is from Ramon Lopez. Not sure what provider he is with or what have you. However, he wrote, we have done various classes with other jurisdictions, about 30 in the last 3 months, New York, New Jersey, Westchester. We have not had any issues with the software, and tracking is not a problem. Not a problem. You can assign co-hosts. New York City allows 50 per class. New Jersey allows 75. Westchester allows 40. Zoom platforms records all activities. I can assist in this process. You can drop material in chat for download. That was commentary from Mr. Lopez.
He's from electrical training course,
Okay, thank you.
the provider.
All right, and thank you, Mr. Lopez, for that commentary. Next is from, excuse me, Joe Kent.
He's with Cassia.
Joe Kent is from Cassia. He started off with given the number of potential difficulties, but then he restarted his paragraph. Given the challenges we are all talking about, I think we would be better to set up a mechanism to suspend courses for this cycle. And if the second wave hits, we will have 6 months to wrap up an online platform. Okay, Joel, thank you. The board will take that into consideration. Next was just two from Mr. Lopez again, just saying he was giving his feedback and thank you. Okay, so those are the Q&As that came in so far. Let's take a look at the chats real quick. Some of these may have been from earlier on. Let's see.
I think that's from Richard Hurlbert.
The first one I'm seeing was early this morning from Frank Farina saying that he was connected. From Tim Michalowski relative to connecting Alex Carosella, just confirming he was online. Todd Birch from Department of Labor, also confirming that he was online. Brian Ferrer as well. Marciati. Janita Hamill, thank you. Richard Byrd. Comment from Janita Hamill just relative to the Zoom program for Karen. Again, Janita Hamill just thanking the commissioner. Janita having to leave to sign up to a webinar. Okay. Richard Hurlbert. It was 2,775 license holders have taken the 2020 CE class. And there's a total of 13,710 active in the license holders, electrical license holders in the state. Yeah, that represents, I just did the calculation, represents 20%, as I indicated before. Excuse me. I believe that was it. Is that right, Karen? Did I miss anybody?
I don't think you did. No.
Okay. And we go back to the Q&As, make sure there's none there. Okay, there are no Q&As. Okay. Okay, at this time, I want to first off, certainly invite the public to stay on. I'd like to take a quick 10-minute break for everybody. And we'll come back in 10 minutes and we'll start getting discussion with the board on this item. So we'll be back at in just about 10 minutes. As soon as the board is all here, we will resume.
I'm assuming I would stop this recording if Jason is still. Jason.
You can if you want to, but you can leave it going. If you stop it and restart it, it will actually be saved as two different files, which is fine. But you could also just let it keep going.
Okay, I'll just let it keep going then.
Okay.
Okay, so it's 10:46, so we'll resume at 10:56.
Yep, or sooner if the board's back.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, I'll
Karen,
leave the recording going. Huh?
Karen, I actually have another meeting at 11 I have to leave for. Are you good? You seem to be doing great, so I have no concerns.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Wonderful.
All right, I am going to shut off my camera, mute myself.
Okay, Karen?
Yes.
I guess we're back, and you've left the recording continue, right? So that's fine.
Yes.
Okay. I'll just double check with the board members. Peter Jennings, are you back?
Yes, I am.
Okay. John Yusa, are you back?
Yes, I am.
And Tony Soder? What happened to Tony? Oh, I wonder if he got off and you have to let him back in.
So can you remind me again, was he one of the phone callers?
Yes, he was.
So
bear with me, man. I'll get his number so we can find the right one.
we have two people here, one with a 203 and one with a 860.
I didn't know I knew that many Anthony's. He should be a 91 area code 913. I don't. Oh, there he. No. Yeah, 203-913-0257. He looks like he's the top one.
Oh, okay. 2039. Okay.
Yep.
All right. Okay. Can you hear us
Thanks,
now,
guys.
Tony?
Yep, I can hear you. Thank you.
Sorry about that.
That's all right. It was my fault. I had to make a phone call.
Okay.
Okay, so okay, the board members are all back. That's great. I'm just looking at the anybody from that's attending that has any more hand raising. I see none. I see no additional Q&As or chats. So we'll turn this back to discussion with the board. Before I do that, I just want to thank everybody that has participated today so far for their participation and their input. We'll take everything into consideration with the board. Okay, so in the interest of getting discussion on this issue, what I'd like to do is I put together a proposed motion, and then we'll have discussion and vote. And this is just as opposed to just having a lot of discussion now and then repeating it again during the motion. So the proposed motion that I put together is as follows. And I'll read it slowly for everybody. The Electrical Work Examining Board hereby requests that the commissioners seek an amendment by executive order to section 20-334D-1 parentheses C parentheses 2 of the regulations for a temporary approval to allow for electrical continued education, virtual, live, interactive classroom online classes, comma, in addition to that which is already approved. The approval shall be in accordance with the documents entitled Instructions and Requirements for Approved Providers Requesting Temporary Approval for an Online Virtual Live Interactive Classroom, dated May 8th, 2020. This executive order shall expire on December 31st, 2020. That's a suggested motion. Can I get somebody to make the first acknowledgement of that motion?
I'll acknowledge it.
Okay, is there a second to it?
I'll second.
Okay, all right, now we can have discussion on it. And this discussion will remain with the board. As the board has heard from everybody today, with a number of varying comments across the board, I'd like to ask each board member individually to make their comments and their feelings or any questions they have. And I'll start off with Mr. Jennings.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. You know, being a classroom teacher, or both having taught online and in-person classes, I'm definitely not in favor of the in-person classes, just because I think you lose a lot of discussion. There's a lot of interaction that actually happens during a live classroom, as opposed to, and I've taken online classes and I participated in them and have taught them. And there's a lot of discussion that gets lost in the online classes. There's a lot of other distractions that you don't have in the classroom. However, having all that being said, I think that your proposal does make the best out of a bad situation. No one foresaw the virus coming. Unfortunately, we have a couple options. If we extend the deadline, then we're going to run into having to do 2 classes in the same year, having had both of them, both sessions. If we forego the professional development, then we're basically saying that professional development is not relevant, and I'm definitely not in favor of that. It's, you know, it's like anything else. We're consummate professionals in our trade. Professional development is very relevant, and we need to make sure that we are participating in it and we do continue it. So I think that your proposal just makes the best out of a bad situation. And those are my comments.
Okay. Tony?
Yes. My first thing is a question. When are we going to adopt the 2020 code cycle or code book? Does anybody know?
We don't know, Tony, but what I've heard, what we had been hearing in the past was it was going to be adopted this fall. However, it's got to go through a legislative process, which obviously is not going to happen. So I don't see it. This is my opinion. I don't see it happening till next year now.
Okay, which is going to lead into my comments. We have a legislative session that got canceled. It's my understanding that there are no schools when it comes to electrical training that are in session. They've all been canceled according to what information I have gathered. So my thing is if they cancel the legislative session, they cancel the apprenticeship classes for people that have only been maybe 5 years into an apprenticeship program, and they're going to get credit for a full year. Why are we doing continuing ed? All I heard from all the providers is they want to do them. It's going to be a challenge. And it's not going to go well because you got to follow people, you got to police people, the whole 9 yards. So my thing is just suspend it for this year. What do we need online classes for if everything else in the state is put on hold? We got people that are unemployed right now that can't pay their mortgages. There's a 90-day grace period on mortgages. We're going to make them pay for a class that they can't even pay for a mortgage to put a roof over their head. For what? So providers can make a little bit of money and PSI can make money? Doesn't make sense to me. Those are my comments. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, Tony, thank you. I'll go to John next. John Yusa.
Okay, my commentary is after listening to everybody express their concerns. Again, my concern is the fact that we're taking a course that has been designed to be one that you're in your seat. And now you're going to very rapidly try to run this online. which eventually I can see where the state as well as other providers, the future is going to be online. I think the big thing we can do, and I would be for it to try it, as several people have suggested, and then see what happens after we try it, have some commentary come back that A, it's going to be a winner, B, it needs some tuning, or finally, this just for our particular requirements may not work as we anticipated it to work. But I think at some point here, we've got to try it because it's going to be the wave of the future, whether it is next year or the year after. Online training for college courses and everything else is fine. I don't see doing doctors and surgery online, but there are certain courses that can be put online, and how well they are accepted, how well people do. Part of the problem which I've experienced with other meetings is the fact that the internet providers may end up being a problem and not necessarily the students, but this is all a learning curve. So that's going to be my commentary. Back to you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you, John. I think most everybody knows my position, which is obviously supportive of this. I can tell you that the chairman of the plumbing board and myself spent many hours on putting this together, and also in concert with the Department of Consumer Protection as requested. Tony, I hear you when you make reference to legislators, which have been all terminated or canceled because of the coronavirus, and yet we're trying to move forward. Yes, I think what I'm hearing out of the industry is that they want the continued education. They want it to keep going. And I've had many calls to that effect, and I've had even some providers indicate that to me. I think what the legislators did and some of the shutdowns that they did, I understand. It's a little bit different situations. There's hundreds and hundreds of people in those buildings. There's not much way of controlling it. And so I can understand them shutting or closing the session and the buildings, including 450 Columbus Boulevard, where we usually meet. There is no question in my mind that continued education, any meeting is much better in person. Okay. Virtual ends up being the next best, not necessarily the greatest, but it's the next best, as opposed to no meeting. As indicated even in the commissioner's email, in her response to Kim Glassman, colleges, universities, everything is obviously going online. I would suspect that no doubt items in the governor's bill 13, such as continued education, will reappear again next year. And although I've been totally against online, virtual or online period, okay, classes, I would almost, I would like to encourage the idea of taking this period of time, kind of like what John Yusuf was saying, I think, and taking this short period of time, so to speak, trying it, seeing how receptive it is, good, bad, or indifferent, taking this information in consideration. And when it does come back next year, presumably anyway, legislatively, be able to intelligently speak before the legislators and not just say, I'm not in support of it because I don't like it. Have some more factual information to present to argue the case either way.
Can I ask a question, Larry, please?
Yeah, was that Tony?
Just a question.
Who is it? It's Tony. Tony, right?
Pardon me?
Is this Tony speaking though?
Yes, it is. I'm sorry.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I wasn't sure, Tony. Sorry.
I'm sorry. Just a quick question. Who's sending letters out to all these electrical license holders that they can do an online class?
Who did what? Are you saying?
Who's sending letters? Go ahead. You're breaking up, Larry. I'm sorry.
Tony, are you saying that there were some letters that were sent out to the license holders that they can do an online class?
Yes. Who's sending them out?
I have no idea. I have no idea. I don't believe I'm not aware of anything that's come out of the department or anybody. Have you seen these letters?
Nobody's going to know there's going to be online classes available. Nobody's going to know that other than the state opening back up again, that online or regular classes, in-seat classes are going to be available. And I think we're going to end up with about 10,000 licensed electrical holders before the board again, looking for a waiver. And we don't even have the last letter sent out from all the other people yet.
Okay, the information as to what's going to be available will be there for the providers, just like it was in the past. I don't know if the department would send out a email to all license holders. I can't answer that, to be honest with you, because it's something outside of my realm. It might be something that might be, we can certainly suggest to the department. As far as people coming in before us with hardships, I think is what you're referencing.
Yep.
We've had those before, and I think those are all individual cases that we would have to deal with. But I seriously doubt that we would see 10,000 people coming before us with hardships. As far as the previous information being sent out, it is my understanding that information has been sent out now. Just before the pandemic came about and everything was shut down, the letters, the FDO's final decisions and orders were developed between the department and the AG's office. And the day before the state office building was shut down at 450 Columbus Boulevard, I was there and signed every one of those 97 documents.
Larry, can I just jump in with one clarification quickly? This is Arunan.
Yes, absolutely.
Welcome. So, thank you. What we have asked the board is for a recommendation. This wouldn't be a binding vote as to what would happen, but a recommendation to give the governor's office on continuing education. It would still require an executive order to either allow for online CEs or to allow for an extension of the renewal date. Would require an executive order. So it would be, obviously publicized through, I would assume, some sort of press conference that the governor's office does, and then we would coordinate as well to notify credential holders. But this wouldn't be a change that occurs today. What we're asking for is a recommendation on how you would like the department to proceed. The department doesn't have a position as to what we would prefer, and that's why we're leaving it up to the board.
Okay, thank you, Ronan. I appreciate that. Appreciate that input. Tony, do you want to say something?
No, I'm good, Larry. Like I said, I just think that we're going way overboard with this online CEU stuff for this year. You want to look at it down the road, that's fine. I just don't think we need to jump the gun right now just so PSI and providers can make a little bit of money. I don't understand the reason why we need to do this right now when people are hurting. there's probably more than 25% unemployment in the construction industry, once again, with people getting 90-day grace periods on their houses, their mortgage payments, their rent payments. Everybody's looking for extensions on everything else. And we're going to make them pay for an online class for what? Just suspend it for this year. What? I don't see what the big deal is. I really don't. I'm sorry.
Okay. I just see a quick Q&A pop up here. Both, I got it. There's a Q&A came in from Mr. Lopez. All the providers will be sending out to everyone once it is approved. And from Mr. Caracella's office, from Alex, Tony is asking how we notify the electricians. We, the providers, will take on the burden of advertising to electricians just as we did with live classes. He also says, Tony brings up the fact of unemployment. Construction is now open. Of course, it's been open right along here in Connecticut. Carousel is up in Mass. Construction is now open and jobs will be returning. There's some Q&As that came in while I saw them. Oops, I think there's another one I missed. Nope, I got them all. Sorry. All right, well, with everything being said, is there any other further discussion on the motion? Okay, hearing none. I take a vote. Vote for the recommendation to the commissioner. Please identify yourself as you vote. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye, Peter Jennings.
Aye, John User.
Okay.
Nay, Tony Soter.
Opposed, Tony? Okay.
Yes, I'm opposed.
The motion passes, so the recommendation will go to the commissioner's office. I would suspect that the commissioner's office will be waiting to for the plumbing board to submit whatever they submit and then address it again. So, all right. Does anybody have anything else to bring before the board today? Okay, hearing none. I'd just like to thank everybody for their for their participation, their input, some of their feelings, their logic, and particularly the board members for taking the time today to address these things. Our next board meeting is scheduled for August 7th. However, we may need to have a meeting prior to that. So, and that would be relative to the next year's continued education curriculum. But we'll just keep monitoring things and see how they go. So,
Mr. Chair, this is Tony. Can I just make one more comment before we
sure.
Before we close the meeting?
Sure.
We have four board members right now, which is a far cry from the 12 members that are supposed to be on it. There's a lot of vacancies out there that have not been filled, which in turn gives us the decision that we have right now. I know the governor's busy. I know this is a tough time for the state of Connecticut and everything else with the COVID-19 and all of that stuff. But I don't believe that we need to make these decisions that are going to impact the industry with only a third of the board members that are supposed to be on the board.
Okay. Yeah, and I appreciate where you're coming from, Tony. And and to your point, I myself have already, prior to the pandemic, had submitted names into the governor's office to try to get these positions filled, just as well as I know other people have. And then this pandemic hit, of course, and it became certainly put off to the side. I believe that I'm hoping anyway that things are settling down a little bit up there in the governor's office, and I will reach out.
3-1.
What's that? I will reach out again to the governor's office to see and ask the department also to do the same, to see if we can't push some of those appointments forward.
So it would definitely help the board and the industry as a whole.
Yep. All right. Nothing else coming before the board, then I'll make a motion. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn at
So moved.
11:22.
I'm sorry there.
I second that.
Yeah.
Well, I thought I seconded, but that's okay.
Okay. Doesn't matter.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, the meeting is adjourned. Again, thank you, everybody, for your participation today. And
Thank you, Lear, and the board members, and Karen, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, you can turn off the recording now.
I'll turn off the recording. There we go.